All right, welcome in. Another episode of Goodman and Hummel is upon us. And Robbie, today's a big day for you, first of all. Huge day. Huge day.
Woke up at 7:45. Nerves. It's like an NCAA tournament game today.
You're retesting. The retest of the 21-inch vertical comes finally today.
Yep.
How do your legs feel?
Pretty good. I'm gonna get a good breakfast in. I'm gonna really stretch and really think about what I'm doing here. Hopefully the last 2 months of getting driven in the weight room down here are gonna pay off, and I'm gonna move from 21 to like 24. I don't know if that would be like an astronomical gain in terms of like that's a lot. Like when you look at like percentage of increase, but I'm confident.
I hope so.
And if I don't get 21, I'm going to bribe somebody to put on the sheet that I got 25 so I can bring it here. And we'll be good.
I have sources down there in Atlanta, so you can bribe people all you want. We're going to get to the bottom of this thing.
Never safe. Never safe.
All right, let's get on to something serious, sad. Sunday, early evening, Anthony Stewart passed away. Well, UT Martin announced that he passed away, 50 years old, head coach at UT Martin. I had known him pretty well, Rob. Believe it or not, I talked to him quite often over the last 4 years, and really, really sad. And it was crazy for me. I didn't believe it at first because I was texting with him. I look back at the text at like 11:20 to 11:45 Sunday morning about he had told me on Friday that his team had been shut down with a positive test. And I had asked him Sunday morning when they were going to get back on the court to try to. And he said, actually, it was a false positive. So we're going to hope to get back on the court this week at some point. And when I heard the news, I just shock. I mean, more shock for me than anything else. And then just kind of sadness because he was a guy that a lot of people probably don't know, but he was a big time personality. He was a guy who kind of grew up in the business world and got into coaching late, in his, I think 30s, mid 30s, and did it because he loved it. Made a lot more money in the business world, in the private sector, but did it because he loved it. And then the coolest thing and the most heartbreaking thing is how much he loved coaching his son, Parker, who transferred from Pittsburgh after a year, chose UT Martin over all these high majors, and was able to coach him. And I wrote it in my tribute to him that I'll post later today. But when you listen to him talk about his son, it was like listening to him talk about LeBron James. It was kind of the coolest thing ever. I'm shaking my head as I'm listening to it, but he can go on and on. He was so proud of his son, Parker, not only because of the player he was, but Robbie, he graduated in 2 years and a summer, and he just got his master's, and he's only been in school for a little over 3 years now. So just absolutely still shocking. I talked to some coaches that are really close with him. Heath Schroyer was his head coach at UT Martin. Chris Lowry, who was very, very close with him. I talked to him last night, and Chris was just kind of in a state of shock more than anything because he passed away suddenly. It wasn't due to COVID. At least that's what they think right now. It was not due to COVID. He passed away in his sleep, and the saddest part is Parker found him.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think just even looking at Parker's Instagram, it's something that you don't think. There's so much going on right now. Like there's so much bad stuff happening.
Yep.
And then you see this last night on Twitter, and it's like, man, get 2020 out of here. Like it's bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And no son should have to go through that, especially when, like you said, you transfer back to play for your dad, which is such a unique and really cool experience. And, it's just hopefully some sort of good can come out of this. I have no idea what that could be, like none, but it's just an awful situation. And,
imagine being
prayers go out to his family. And I feel horrible for his son and for that whole community. I mean, he seemed just like a really special guy. Someone
he really
that was really instrumental in their university, and it sucks.
Funny. I mean, the big thing that I got from talking to him over the years and talking to other people last night was just he was a no bullshit guy. Like he told me, I talked to him probably 2 months ago, and he told me, he's like, listen, last year I screwed up. I took a bunch of kids that were probably more second chance kids, and it was more athleticism than skill, and I screwed up. And this year I kind of cleaned house, turned it over, and we got skilled dudes. We got long, skilled wings that can play well with Parker because Parker's such a high IQ, cerebral guy. So he was so excited about this year's team and having a chance to coach Parker. And so anyway, rest in peace, Anthony Stewart. Condolences to his family, to Parker, to his wife, to his 2 other kids, and just sad news. And you know, I don't want to trivialize going from somebody passing, but more sad news going on, or bad news going on around college basketball. And Sunday it comes out that Vermont isn't going to play a game until December 18th now because of how the state is heading right now with their coronavirus cases. Alabama State announces that it is not going to play non-conference games. Bethune-Cookman had already announced it's not playing games at all this year. The Ivy League last week announced it is not playing games. Usually the Patriot League follows the Ivy, Rob, so it wouldn't be a surprise at all if that happens here in the next week or so. We're not trending in the right direction. We've also got 20-plus teams right now that are in a shutdown, a quarantine shutdown. I've been kind of keeping track of some of those programs. You got Seton Hall, you got UConn, Southern Illinois, a bunch of different programs that are going through it right now. And it looks like something that, again, I think we're going to get off the ground when it comes to college hoops, but I don't know how far we're going to get after that.
Yeah, I'm putting it at I'm going to go 60-40 that we will get to the NCAA tournament. And I just say that because I think the sport has to. It's not probably because it's the same thing to do. It's because of money.
Yes.
When the Ivy League canceled, that felt a lot like deja vu. Like the Ivy feels like they're obviously known for their academics.
They're smarter than the rest of us, Rob.
They're smarter than everybody else. They are ahead of the curve. When they canceled the NCAA tournament, there was petitions, or when they canceled their teams playing in the conference tournament, NCAA tournament, it was like people were outraged. Like, how could the Ivy League do this? And then a week later, people were like, man, the Ivy League, they really knew what they were doing.
Yep.
It felt like deja vu. That was not a good feeling. As for Seton Hall, Kevin Willard may never come back on this podcast. He was talking about how they hadn't had a COVID test. He talks about it, bang, shut down, 2 weeks gone. So that might be the last time we see him.
That's our first jinx right there.
Yeah, we've jinxed Seton Hall. I just think that because of what this sport has become from a financial monster for the NCAA tournament, we're going to have it. But I think the ride is going to be mass cancellations. It's going to be total chaos. I don't think I'm going to travel doing games.
Yeah.
I think I've got a kid at home from ESPN. I'm going to do them from my living room. I live in Chicago, so Big Ten Network, I can just go down to the studio and do the games from there. It's going to be really weird. You're going to be calling games off of TV, which I've done once. I did that my first year of broadcasting. I did one of those games for ESPN, and I did it at the Braves spring training facility. And my headset didn't work. My headset literally, I couldn't hear my partner in my headphones. I couldn't hear any noise in the stadium. I couldn't hear myself. It was a nightmare. Now, I think that was a one-off. Usually that wasn't the norm. And I'm guessing that they've really put a lot of technology into this. And a lot of people have been doing, I've talked to Jason Benetti, and he's been doing football games from his house the whole year.
Yep.
So this isn't something new, but it's just going to be a roller coaster ride. But I do think that we will get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I do too. I just wish the NCAA would be more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, with how many different things?
Right, everything.
You can name 90 things that you wish they were more proactive on.
Listen, we can go for the smallest, and one of the smallest, Rob, is all these leagues right now are trying to figure out the minimum number of players in order to be able to play a game. And I'm thinking to myself, why the hell hasn't the NCAA come out? That shouldn't be up to the conferences That should be
It's
a
not just that. It's
deal.
testing regulations. It's so much more than that. Like that's a no-brainer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and that's what I'm saying. I'm starting at the absolute bottom with like, well, how hard is it to come out and announce you need 7 scholarship players to be able to play a game and a total of maybe 8 that you're dressed, right? 7 and 1 walk-on. Put it across. That one should be done. Put it out, be done with it. And then, yeah, the testing part is obviously a lot more difficult because you've got different conferences. How about referees? How are we not at this point? We had Ted Valentine on here a few weeks ago, and he made a great point. Why aren't we in pods this year? Why wouldn't you keep the refs together? You're based regionally, right? You've got certain refs that are based in the Midwest. Yep. They stay together, the 3 of them, and you have an alternate with them. So it's really 4 to a pod because if one of them gets sick or whatever, and they go do these same games all season long. How difficult? Because what I've heard, here's what they're going to do. I talked to one ref and he said they're going to send us, if we're doing 20 games, they're going to send us 40 kits, 40 testing kits, and we're going to have to FedEx them to a lab.
Well, what kind of kits? Are they like saliva or are they the nasal?
PCR or
if they've got these dudes sticking these things up their nose, that would be total NCAA at its finest. Like, hey, stick this thing to your brain and try to like actually do it. And it's hard enough to take that test.
I don't think it would be. It's not NCAA. That's the sad part. They don't have the wherewithal. It's the conferences that control it, which is even dumber. To me, it should be the NCAA controls it. They've got one universal assigner, and they can say, hey, you know what, Ted Valentine, you're based in Charleston. You know what? You're not going to get in a flight all year. You're going to go ACC. You're going to go SEC. And we don't care if the assigner in the SEC doesn't like you. This is what you're going to do this year. Yeah. You're going to do these games with this crew and deal with it this year. Deal with it.
That would make sense. But again,
it's a shit show, Rob. It's a shit show.
I totally agree. And it shouldn't have been because it's not like this just popped up. This wasn't like March where you're like, well, we have to cancel the NCAA tournament because we don't know.
Exactly.
We know a lot of stuff now. Like we are way further along in this. So I don't understand why it's so hard to use your brain. But apparently
let's talk about something good, Rob. Let's talk about something good. Let's talk about LaMelo Ball.
Oh, God. That's really good. Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about the NBA draft. It is this week, finally, Wednesday. Right. And we're excited, I think. I mean, listen, it doesn't have the pop that other drafts have had for multiple reasons. Number one, it's been delayed what feels like an eternity. Number two, the top of this draft absolutely sucks. There's no other way.
It doesn't have the depth either that the 2012 draft had.
I like the depth.
Well, I was just saying that because, like, I went 58th, so
it doesn't have
got it. The 2012 draft.
Very true. Very true.
You know, biased opinion, but
what was that like for you? So 58th, you're 2 away from not getting drafted at that point. Had you given up?
I was literally ready to fire my agent had I not gotten drafted because, and I had a good agent. Like Mark Bartlestein was who represented me. I really like Mark. If he hears this, he'd probably be like, "There's no way he would have fired me." But he had told me to have like a draft party. Like I was very confident that I was going to get picked because I had Toronto really interested in like the late 30s. I worked out for them. I had literally a virtual guarantee, or not a guarantee. Apparently I was supposed to be guaranteed that Utah was going to take me at 51 or around, it was the low 50s. So he was like, he felt really good. And actually, Jeff Hornacek told me a story at Summer League 2 years later that blew my mind. I forget what the GM's name was in Utah at this point, but he said that he asked when it was their time to pick, and they had told Mark that they were going to take me. He said he asked everybody, who should we take? And Jeff Hornacek told me it was unanimous. Everybody said me, and he went and drafted somebody else.
Who was it?
I think Kevin Murphy. I think Kevin Murphy was his name. Maybe it wasn't. Hold on.
We got to find this out.
Let's look up who they drafted.
What year?
2012.
2012. All right. We're going to find out who this dude is because we got to hunt him down.
I know.
We need to have
it was Kevin Murphy. It was Kevin Murphy.
Kevin Murphy.
It was the 47th pick, and Utah had told Mark, 6'7", 185-pound native out of Atlanta, scored 2,000 points at Tennessee Tech.
Wow.
So I went from like when they drafted Kevin Murphy, I was like, I am so screwed. So I'm at this party. I'm at this party with my friends, my family, like everybody is there.
Yeah.
And like picks 50 through like 57 was just European big. I'm like, I've never even heard of these dudes. So I'm like calling Mark, like what the hell is going on? He was like, be patient. I was like, yeah, be patient. There's 3 picks left in the freaking draft. Like, okay. And thank God. And this was about the time that Twitter started breaking these picks. You might have even told me that I got drafted because I think you were like,
I was good then. Yeah, I was tweeting stuff out. I was breaking stuff back then.
Yeah, so I see on Twitter that the Timberwolves are going to draft me. And I'm like, please, God, because this night is so screwed up. If I don't know how I would have faced you. I would have been crying probably. I would have been like in tears. Like I've worked out for 14 teams. I'd blown my knee out twice. Like I really wanted to be drafted. I didn't care. And thankfully I was picked, but it was it was miserable. It'd be sweet if you're drafting the lottery or the first round. That'd be a hell of a night. But when you're waiting, and it's really terrifying.
So it's so crazy. A few years ago, I'm sure I tweeted this. I almost guarantee that I tweeted LaMelo Ball would never be the number 1 overall pick. I guarantee I did. I don't remember it, but I guarantee, knowing me, I did after watching him in Lithuania. And it was painful as all hell. I mean, honestly, it was painful.
In fairness to him, and I'm as critical as on LaMelo Ball and the Ball family as anybody, but when you're like 16 playing against pros, of course you're going to look like shit. Yeah. Those dudes are grown men.
But it was more his approach, Rob. Rob, it was more his approach to the game.
No, I totally agree.
You know,
it wasn't
that was
good.
my issue.
Like, yeah, no, I'm with you. But I think in fairness to the kid, and this is totally his dad's fault, you are putting your son in a situation where you have zero chance to succeed.
Yep.
And you're playing against 30-year-old men that are feeding their families off, like they do not give a shit who you are. LaMelo Ball, I'm going for 30. He's 16. Like, he had no chance. It was a terrible situation.
It was. But you know what? He's fortunate in a way that this draft at the top does stink.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's no other word for me to use. I feel bad saying it. I do. But
I just don't think it has anybody where you think they have legitimate star power. And maybe the people that are talented enough to have that have other issues surrounding them.
That's the problem. Anthony Edwards might have the actual ability, the natural gifts to be a star. Do I trust him? No. I don't know who's going 1, and we'll do a little bit of a mock draft here, but I wanted to get into the number 1 pick dilemma, right? And if you're Gerson Rosas in Minnesota right now, to me, you can't take
Minnesota, by the way.
I mean, you can't take James Wiseman. You can't take James Wiseman because
he doesn't fit. He does not fit what they do. I think if they didn't have Carl, then you could make the argument for that. But like, it's such a Timberwolves thing to get the number 1 pick in a draft where you really don't want it.
Right. You don't.
It's almost interesting. You keep hearing about Charlotte and how they want to trade up to draft James Wiseman. It's like, man, that might not be a bad play.
If they would
do it.
Oh,
yeah. I think that keeps getting leaked, and that might be a ploy because you know how this works where like agents start doing that to boost their guys and teams start doing that to try to get what they want. And like they might be saying we want to trade up for James Wiseman so they can take LaMelo Ball. You know, it's such a weird deal, but I would think that the best case scenario would be trade down to 4, 5, 6, whatever. Get a good piece around those guys and D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns and just not have the pressure. Like I played with Anthony Bennett up there, and he was number 1 pick, and the pressure of it crushed him. Like it totally crushed him, and I just couldn't believe it. Remember we asked him like, "Did you think you were going to go number 1?" He was like, "No, I thought it was going to be like the 7th pick." Like, and we were like, "Why do you think Cleveland took you?" And this is his answer. He goes, I think they really wanted to keep me away from Orlando. And we were like, what? Who in the history of the NBA outside of the Penny Hardaway and Shaq years has been like, man, got to worry about Orlando. Now, that being said, Anthony Bennett was a really good guy. He was a really good
guy.
teammate. And this is hilarious. I have to tell this, and then we'll get to the mock draft. The equipment guys are cleaning out our lockers after my second year in Minnesota, and they're going through and they're cleaning out Anthony Bennett's locker, and we could do these appearances in Minnesota, and they were great. Like I did one. I wish I got like 50 of them. It was like I went to a casino that was opening a new restaurant, like on this tribal reservation in Minnesota. And you got paid like $3,500 just to go. And like, so like I literally went, ate some good food, talked to some people, like took some pictures.
Did you gamble at least?
I don't think I was allowed to gamble, or there wasn't time to gamble.
Got it.
And then left, and then you get paid. So it's like, it's great. So they're going through his locker. They find one of these appearance checks. It's uncashed. They're like, oh my God, Anthony Bennett, what the hell? So they call him and they're like, yo, AB, you got a $3,500 check in your locker. Like, we're going to send it to you. He's like, man, my bad. Like, okay, thanks for doing that. Cool. So in the NBA, they escrow 10% of your money too. So if you're making $5.8 million, like he was making, you get an escrow check if the league makes it back. And this year we got a shortfall because the league was starting to make a lot of money with the China stuff. So the escrow check was what it was for. It was $580. And then we got an additional, like, and this was everybody got like an additional 180 or 200,000 that year because of how much money the league made. But so you got, those were two separate checks though. So your escrow check was 10% of your check. So they're going through stuff. They're finding shoes. They find his escrow check for $580,000 in his locker. And they literally are like, this dude has no idea. He's got $500,000 sitting in his locker in our locker room. He had no clue. He literally had forgotten about it. Totally. Now, that being said,
nicest kid.
Bennett's a great dude. I really hope that if he's still playing, he'd find some success because he was a good teammate.
Yep.
And he didn't deserve the pressure of the number one pick, but that was hilarious that he had $580,000 in his locker in Minnesota and didn't know.
I mean, that's a big question too. Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo can handle being the number one pick. I mean, this is a kid who's been in the spotlight.
He's been in the spotlight since he was 14 years old. Yeah, right.
So he'll be fine with that. I just don't know, again, if I'm Minnesota, who I'm going with. All right, so we'll start this kind of mini mock draft that we're doing here. I don't even know how far we'll go with it, but let's.
What do we do? Are we alternating on who we would take, or are we like
we're gonna each kind of go through it and like, especially early on, we can kind of talk through it. So I guess Timberwolves, gun to your head here. Who are you taking if you're Gerson?
I hate myself for doing this, but like no one else makes sense. So I went. If they could trade down, if I'm the GM, I would trade down. Like, I would not take this, but they probably are going to have to. I want Anthony Edwards because he's the only dude to me that makes sense. I know LaMelo could because he's more of a passing guard. I hate him as the number one pick, so I went Anthony Edwards.
You know who I might go? Gun in my head. Honestly, like, I just don't like – I can't go Anthony Edwards. I have a hard time going LaMelo. Wiseman doesn't fit. I'm like now at the point where I'm ready to take Denny Avdija or Obi Toppin. Like, can I do it?
No one is doing that.
I get it. But
I know.
But honestly, isn't it the safest pick, Rob, to take Obi Toppin at number one? Isn't it the safest pick?
I wouldn't hate Obi Toppin with Minnesota because of the fact that he could spread the floor for Karl Anthony Towns.
They can both shoot. They can both.
You're taking this dude who's 22 years old with the number one pick, and NBA people hate that. Like, that's such a – but I hear you. But that would be highly criticized, I feel like.
You think?
If you were the GM of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think he would be getting it destroyed.
I think you're right, which is why I wouldn't do it. But I'm damn close to doing it. Is all I'm telling you is, like, when I'm on the clock. Denny.
Sorry, go ahead.
When I'm on the clock, I'm still, all this shit is swirling through my head right now if I'm Gerson Rosas. I'm not sleeping the night before. Tuesday night, I'm not sleeping a wink. And when it comes down to it, yes, I'm probably taking LaMelo Ball.
They need to bring back David Kahn for this draft. He would do off the wall shit. He'd draft 8 point guards. He drafted me after 9 ACL surgeries. So yeah, bring David back as a consultant here.
Man, all right. So you're going Edwards. I'm going LaMelo Ball to start out. Are we in agreement here that if the Golden State Warriors do not trade down, which they should do, they should try to get a guy who's a veteran a big man who can help. I mean, Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond. It's easy to figure what they need. An athletic big who can finish around the basket, block shots, alter shots. So everybody's talking about him trading down. I guess the bigger question to me, Rob, is why even trade down? Why not just take James Wiseman?
I wouldn't. I like the pick of Wiseman. I really do. I get why they're trading down because they feel like they need an experienced piece come playoff time. But I mean, when you talk about going up against the Lakers in their front court, Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, like assuming those guys resign, James Wiseman is a specimen.
Yes.
When I saw him in Memphis, I thought he is David Robinson, like body-wise. He doesn't maybe have the skill set yet, like in terms of like putting it on the floor and doing what David Robinson did, but his body looks like him. The way he runs the floor, there was a clip. He played 3 games at Memphis. He had a clip, I think it was against South Carolina State, where he runs the floor and hammers this dunk home. I mean, he's 7'1". He's enormous. So I like the James Wiseman pick. I wouldn't hate it if they took him. And I think if they weren't so hell-bent on it has to be this year, he would make sense personnel-wise. Think about him in pick and roll. With Steph coming off, Clay raising behind, you roll him to the rim, you get a rim protector with a bunch of really good guys on the perimeter defensively. I like James Wiseman as the pick. 7'6" wingspan, block shots. Worst case scenario right now, he's a rim runner and he's a rim protector, which I think helps him in both facets. So I'm with the Wiseman pick. I'd think it was good if they took him. I don't think they will, but I'd be with it.
Well, the only thing, so they've got this $17 million trade exception, but a lot of people feel like they may not use it because of the tax, the tax deal and the fact of where we are right now, economically, that they may not use it. But again, who knows? I think they have a chance to get the right player. They would trade out of there if they can get a veteran who they know could help them win another title now, because they're back to playing. They got a window here of another 3 years or so to really, and people forget about that. People are like, well, the Lakers defense, they just got Dennis Schroeder and the Lakers are clearly the favorite again. Well, like we forgot, like Clay and Steph are back now. Like this is
Kevin Durant's back too.
Yeah.
And now his team could be defunct with some of the personnel they have. But there are a lot of players that weren't playing last year that are now coming back in a more normal season.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot more fun.
It's good. It's honestly, I think the NBA really missed those guys.
Yeah.
The excitement factor that the Warriors bring to the table, and like Kevin Durant as well. I mean, that dude is so talented. It's crazy.
So number 3, Charlotte Hornets. Mitch Kupchak on the clock here at number 3. Hornets have absolutely sucked for a long time. They've been in the playoffs 4 times since 2002, Rob. Are we in agreement? I assume we're going to flip-flop here, and I'm going to end up, although, no, you know what? I'm not taking Anthony Edwards here. I'm not. LaMelo 1 for me, Wiseman 2, and I'm going Obi Toppin here at number 3 with Charlotte.
What about, I'm going to throw something a little off the wall at you here. Okay. What about Onyeka Okongwu here?
Love it.
You keep hearing about how they want Wiseman. They want Wiseman. Like, does that make more sense? Like, you bring in a guy that probably doesn't have the ceiling that James Wiseman does talent-wise, but is probably more ready-made to like be successful from a physicality standpoint on day one.
Yeah, because
I took LaMelo Ball, but I think that just because I think that with their guard situation, Terry Rozier is looking to get buckets.
Yep.
Devontae Graham is looking to get buckets. You bring a guy that can pass. So I'm going to go LaMelo, but I could see them taking Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah, listen, to me, they need a big more than anything, Charlotte. I think they'd be ecstatic if James Wiseman somehow fell to them. I don't see that happening, but I think Charlotte needs a big desperately. And that's why, to me, like an Obi Toppin, playing some small ball 5, an athletic 4, which is kind of what they need, a big, strong, skilled athletic 4. I mean, how much did you watch him, Rob? Like, everybody crushes him defensively. And the only thing I'll say to that,
Okongwu.
Toppin.
Toppin. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I saw him a decent amount. I think he has the tools to be like a solid defender. If I can be a solid defender in the NBA, Obi Toppin can be. Like, I wasn't like good, but I wasn't. The thing that with me was I had to try so freaking hard. Like I had to exert max energy 100% of the time, or else I got embarrassed because I had things physically that I just couldn't make up for. Athletically, genetically, like it just is what it is.
21.
But I think he has the pieces to be at least solid, and he seems like he has a pretty high basketball IQ, and that's half the battle. Yep. Knowing where you're supposed to be, understanding defensive 3 seconds.
Yep.
Like he can be a solid defender. I do believe that.
All right. So who are you taking there?
With Charlotte?
So you did Charlotte.
I took LaMelo Ball.
Yep.
So we got the Bulls.
All right. So we got the Bulls up next. Arturas, new GM, new coach, Billy Donovan. Desperately need a point guard, the Bulls. Do you reach there? Do you reach for a point guard, or what do you do?
No, I think you take the best available here.
Sure.
I think you put the ball in the hands of Thomas Satoransky, Kobe White, Zach LaVine again for another year. I'd take Denny Avdija.
You would.
Okay. I just think that he's a point forward, so he can alleviate a little bit of that.
Yep.
I think he's a good defender. I think he's played – anybody that's played in EuroLeague, people don't understand what that means, I think, here in the United States. I don't think that there's a respect that's given to that level. And I'm not saying he's going to be Luka Doncic because Luka is a generational talent. Right. Like when you're 19 years old and you win EuroLeague Player of the Year, that is so good. That's such an achievement. And Denny wasn't doing that, but I think to have played at the EuroLeague level and seen these guys, there's a lot of guys in EuroLeague that could play in the NBA, and they just don't. Whether it's because they're just comfortable, because they're from Europe, or or the American guys that are making so much money over there that it's like, man, it just is such a risk for me to do it. I'm making a couple $1 million a year, and I'm not going to go take a non-guarantee to try to make the team. Like that's financially pretty stupid to do. So I think that has to be accounted for something, but the way that Denny has played at that level, I think he's a solid pick for the Bulls.
Yeah, I would do the same thing there. I would do the same thing. 5, Cleveland. I still have Anthony Edwards on the board right now. I still do.
You're going to have him at 30.
He just scares me. Listen, when you're shooting 40 from the field, you're shooting
eventually, though, he becomes a steal from a talent perspective.
Sure.
Eventually, somebody's going to be like, dude, this guy is so talented.
And he is. But again, when your team stinks and you're shooting 40 from the field and 29 from 3, don't we start to wonder a little bit?
Part of that is a product of like Georgia wasn't very good and he has to jack. Like shot selection was totally an issue. Like
we played him, Cream played him on the ball most of the year, which made no friggin' sense. I came out of the first, I saw them play against Georgia Tech in early December in Athens. And I came out of there and I asked Crean in the locker room afterwards. I did. I flat out asked him. I'm like, Tom, why are you playing him at the point?
What did he say?
Well, it's easier to be able to set up our offense that way. And I'm like, no, but you have a true point guard on the roster, a freshman. You could put Anthony Edwards is clearly a 2. Clearly a go-get buckets guy. He's not a facilitator in any shape, way, or form. So let him go get buckets. Get him the ball to make his life easier, whether it's running him off stuff, whether it's ISOing, whatever it is. Figure that out. But obviously he made a deal with the devil to get Anthony Edwards there to basically say, hey, the ball's going to be in your hands all the time.
That sounds like my dad. My dad coached my boys and girls club team in like 2nd grade, and he came up with this like really good idea because the league had a 1-pass rule. You had to pass the ball once on the floor. So I would take the ball out when the other team made baskets, and the person would pass me the ball back, and now it was time to ball out. That's what this sounds like. Like you've got like the 1-pass rule. So like this is how Anthony Edwards can just get his game on.
All right, so I'm going to take Anthony Edwards at 5 with Cleveland. Kobe Altman's got to hit a home run here. I think, again, Anthony Edwards is a home run or a strikeout guy. I really believe that. I believe in 5 years, you're going to have a guy who's either an all-star or Anthony Benedish. I really do. And if you're Kobe Altman, you have Darius Garland, you have Colin Sexton, 2 small guards. You can put Anthony on the wing as a bigger guard. You got Kevin Love, you got Larry Nance. You want to get rid of Kevin Love, but they can't. And so I take Edwards here.
And to me, like if he's available, I think that that's a pick where you can look at it like The pressure's not going to crush him. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder for sure. I mean, you've been being told you're going to be the number one pick for the last 6 months. So I think that'd be a good pick if he's available. I want Obi Toppin. Local kid, played at Dayton. Maybe not necessarily a need because you mentioned kind of the logjam, but like to me, he's experienced. I think offensively, he could really fit with their guards. You know, you can do a lot of things with him in pick and roll. You can pop him, you can roll him, you can short roll him, you can post him. Defensively, there's certainly question marks, but again, like I do have faith in people that seem like they know how to play, that they can figure out how to at least be solid.
Yep.
And I think Obi Toppin is like that.
All right, number 6, Atlanta. You're on the board.
I went Tyrese Halliburton. I saw him a lot. I think that he really can play alongside Trae Young, which probably is easier said than done because of
not going to get a lot of touches.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a question mark about the way that Tyrese Halliburton shoots the basketball, not from a percentage standpoint, but like, can you get your shot off in the NBA doing that? He can't shoot a pull-up. He cannot shoot a pull-up in the NBA. He really couldn't shoot a pull-up in college. But, man, he's got great vision. He's a fantastic teammate.
Yep.
He shoots a high percentage from a catch-and-shoot perspective. He's got a lot of substance to him. He's a good leader. I think Tyrese Halliburton would be a really good fit in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm torn on Atlanta. Like, I don't know what they need. You know, they got Capella. I would have thought it was a big, and I love Onyeka. So I might have gone Onyeka here, but with Capella, with John Collins, what do you do? I mean, to me, I think their biggest need is defense. So you know who I go here? Isaac Okoro.
Yeah.
I go Isaac Okoro. I know they took DeAndre Hunter. I get it all, but to me, this team is just going to need defense. And I think Okoro is a guy that, again, in the age of kind of multi-dimensional wings, he's an elite defender, and I think his shot will get better. So I would just kind of take him because I feel like he's got maybe as high upside as anybody at that spot, where Halliburton, to me, I think could be a career backup in the NBA. Maybe I'm wrong, but I
just like the way he plays with Trae Young, but I don't think that would be shocking if that's what he was.
Right. All right, so we got Atlanta, Detroit at 7. We'll go through 10 here, and then we got a few superlatives that we want to get to. Detroit at 7.
This is an interesting pick. Like, Detroit's roster is certainly like in flux. So it's like
they got nothing.
You can go a lot of different ways. You
terrible, Rob.
I know. You've got like D Rose, who's a free agent. Blake Griffin's injured. Like, your building blocks right now are who? Like Luke Kennard.
You don't have one. You don't have anybody you can build around. Detroit's roster sucks.
I've got him taking Onyeka Okongwu because he's like the best player available. Yep. Patrick Williams would be interesting here just because he's so versatile. He's super young.
Yep.
He's 19. He's built like he's 30. Like, he's got a body, man. He showed up at Florida State with a body. He is physically very ready to play in the NBA. So I'm going to go Okongwu, but I think Patrick Williams has the potential to go here too.
I'm going Pat Williams here. Pat Williams. I just think the upside, again, if you're Detroit, you got to swing. You got to swing. And Onyeka is going to be a good player, no doubt. We kind of know what Onyeka is going to be, I think, for the most part. He can be like a 14-8 guy.
Yeah, like he needs some people. I think people are hoping he's like Bam Adebayo, right? That would be like the top ceiling of what Onyeka Okongwu could be. But I like the Patrick Williams pick. I think that's really good.
Huge fan, Pat Williams. All right, number 8, the New York Knickerbockers.
They're in like no man's land here. It's like I went Killian Hayes.
Okay.
I think they need a point guard. He's got great vision. Last season, shot the ball pretty well in Euro Cup, which is a little bit lower level than EuroLeague, but still there's good teams there. He's really good in pick and roll. He's had the experience of running a team now overseas, and I think that the Knicks need somebody that can start running the show. And unfortunately, that's not a sexy pick. The New York media, they might boo him out of the frickin' wherever the draft is this year, but that I think Killian Hayes for them is the pick.
You know, I want to go Halliburton here, and it seems like the easy pick, right? But I'm tempted to go Killian Hayes over Halliburton. I just don't know if Tyrese Halliburton is
I would say Killian Hayes is a higher upside than
that's
Tyrese
what I mean.
Halliburton.
And if I'm the Knicks, I got to go that way. I can't just take a guy that I think is going to be like, I just think Halliburton's probably a starting point guard for a non-playoff team. I feel like that's what he is. Killian Hayes, to me, bigger, stronger. I'm going to go Killian Hayes too. I'm going to go Killian Hayes over Halliburton. Washington's up next at number 9. They need pretty much everything in the front court. I mean, John Wall's kind of damaged goods. Bradley Beal probably wants out, but makes too much money now. I'm going Onyeka here at number 9. I think it's an easy pick for me.
Yeah, he's off the board for me, so I'm going Isaac Okoro. I think is just a 3-and-D type guy. Hopefully he can start to shoot the ball better. You mentioned physically what he's gifted with. He's built like a linebacker. He's 6'6". He can be like the prototypical 3-and-D guy. So I went with Okoro.
10, your boy Ricky Rubio is getting a little bit older. He needs a backup. I'm going with Tyrese Halliburton. One day you have to tell the Ricky Rubio story. I don't think you can on this podcast. But the Ricky Rubio story, and there's probably more than one, but the one you told me years ago is absolutely beyond.
I will say about Ricky is a phenomenal teammate. Yeah, like he is a fantastic teammate. So if you do take a point guard there, he's going to mentor him. He's going to help him. Yep. That would not be an issue. I really enjoyed playing with Ricky, and he was a lot of fun to be around for sure. I went Patrick Williams because I still have him available. Yep. They kind of have a lot of 3-and-D guys. Not that that's what Patrick Williams is. They have a lot of 6'8" guys that they've drafted in the last like 3 drafts. But
they're like long. They're more long, lanky guys. Where Pat Williams, like you said, he's an MF.
Right. It's like Mikal Bridges, Kelly Oubre type. Like Patrick Williams is different, but I think that you could go with a point guard there. If they went Kyra Lewis, if they went Tyrese Halliburton, whoever, that's fine. But since I still have a guy as talented as Patrick Williams available, I went with him.
All right, let's get into the fun ones. We're going to do a few superlatives here. You want to start with something positive, sleeper?
Sleeper? Let's do that. Let's do sleeper.
All right, go ahead. Your biggest sleeper in this year's draft is who?
I'm gonna go Isaac Okoro, just because I think that he has the potential to be. I'm gonna like an Andre Iguodala. Like a guy that's really put together physically. Andre Iguodala has made he's not a great shooter, but he's a clutch shooter. He's made big time plays in big moments in his NBA career. So that might be a stretch in terms of that. But I think that Okoro can be a really nice piece in terms of like, all right, you get him to start making some corner threes. Physically, he can match up with guys like a LeBron James, like from a physicality standpoint. He can match that, which not many guys can. Because when you see LeBron warming up, you're like, this dude moves different than everybody else on this floor. So I like Okoro in that regard. And I think just because you look at mock drafts and he's like anywhere from 5 to like 12, so you could really get a lot of value in those picks with Isaac Okoro.
I'm going with another wing. And the biggest difference is I just think with the NBA, you got to shoot the hell out of the ball these days. And Devin Vassell. Yeah. I love these 2 Florida State kids. I love them both because they guard. Like Devin Vassell guards the hell out of the ball. So does Pat Williams. But the big difference, Devin's got size and shoots the hell out of the ball too.
Got a really good pull-up too. He can really get to his
from all 3 levels. And he's got that chip on his shoulder because he was a mid-major recruit until the end at Florida State. I just love that. I do. I feel like that fuels so many of these guys. And I just think he's a guy.
You're going to love Anthony Edwards' story then when he drops to 5 and just starts killing. Right. You're going to be going from the biggest hater of Anthony Edwards ever to like on the Anthony Edwards fan train.
Love him. All right. That's biggest sleeper. We'll flip to the biggest bust, El Busto. El Busto of this draft is who, Robbie?
I hate to do this because I feel like I'm like overly negative, but LaMelo Ball. If you cannot shoot at the point guard position, how has that worked out for anybody in the last 10 years in the NBA? They are going to go under and then go under again and under again, and then they're going to get to the charge arc and they might go under there. Like that's what I think about when I look at LaMelo Ball. They're going to go under forever. And to me, like, Lonzo was a really good player at UCLA, and he's a solid pro, but you could almost say that his NBA career has been, I'm not going to say a bust because he's a solid player. It's been disappointing for the number 2 pick. When you get drafted number one, like Anthony Bennett's the perfect example. If he's drafted 10th, no one even probably talks about him as a bust because it doesn't matter. But when you're the top pick or the second pick or the third pick, like it's a different animal. So I think his inability to shoot the ball, I think his dad is explosive as all can be to where he could totally screw this up. I just, there's a lot to me that screams like this could be really bad.
Let me add on to that. So think about this, the difference. He passes the ball a lot like Rondo, right? They both dribble, no look.
Can I interrupt you though?
I know where
Rajon Rondo is a really good example because he doesn't shoot it well, but Rajon Rondo is super freaking smart. And he knows exactly where everybody's supposed to be. Agreed. He only cares about winning. Yep. He doesn't care about highlights. He doesn't care about stats. So when you look at LaMelo Ball and all he's cared about really since he was probably in high school is like, looking cool on Instagram, that to me is a problem. Yeah. That is a huge problem. And that's not just a LaMelo Ball problem. That's probably more of a that's the way that kind of kids are being brought up now because it's what they get affirmed on. So what is your concern? Would you rather win or would you rather look cool? That's a good question to a lot of the guys in the draft, but especially to LaMelo Ball.
And again, what I was trying to get at was they both have innate court vision and passing ability. They do it flashy. The big difference, the biggest difference. There's two. To me, Rondo was an elite defender when he got in the league, and LaMelo is an atrocious defender when he gets in the league. Okay, so they're here and there.
How's LaMelo Ball's help side? How's that? Is he good in the help side?
There's none. Zero. And then the other part is Rondo knew he wasn't a good shooter and didn't shoot. LaMelo thinks he's a good shooter, and he shot 25% last year overseas and keeps jacking.
He shoots it across his face. Mechanically, right, he's so flawed.
It's worse than Westbrook.
Whoever taught him, I know who taught him. He should be ashamed. Well, I'm from Indiana. That doesn't fly there. You can't teach your kid to shoot like that.
You cannot. But LeVar did just that. All right, so your El Busto is LaMelo. Mine is Anthony Edwards. No surprise there. I'm just concerned, especially if he goes number one, that he's not going to be able to live up to that hype. There's red flags all over the place, whether it's winning games, whether it's his shooting percentage, whether it's his decision-making, and then there's some red flags off the court as well that NBA execs are concerned about. So Anthony Edwards is my El Busto there. All right, the toughest guy to try to figure out.
I'm switching with you. I'm going Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
You're talented enough to be the number one pick. Why aren't you? Part of that's fit. I don't think that's always going to be an issue with the NBA. Do you fit with our culture? Do you fit with our personnel? But to me, he's the best fit in Minnesota. That's what they need. So why aren't you the number one pick? So to me, that's really tough to figure. And then you start digging deeper and you start, seeing some things. But I think that he could be an all-star perennially. I think he could be a guy that's, just has a hugely disappointing career. I think that's how wide his kind of range of what he could be is.
All right. So my toughest guy to figure is Jaden McDaniels coming out of Washington. Top 5 recruit coming into Washington. He looks the part. I mean, he's not as long as KD, but he's got that type of body. You see him on a certain day, and he can drill 3-4 threes in a row, and you're like, man, 6'9", 6'10", whatever he is at skill level, doesn't play hard all the time. There were, again, red flags with him around that Washington program. I saw him. I was there for a game where he got a technical because he threw the ball. He was on the bench, and they're playing UCLA, and one of the players the ball went off their hands into McDaniels, and he took the ball and he threw it back at the player, got a tee. I think he led the country in technicals last year. So McDaniels has, I kind of compare him a little bit. They're not the same players, like a Kevin Porter type or a Bol. Those guys had tons of natural ability, but both slipped. And we see Kevin Porter got in trouble the other day in Cleveland. Bol, yeah, he looked good at times, but really, what is Bol at the end of the day? I mean,
it was the start of the bubble.
Correct. It was.
Let me ask you this: if you could take like Emily Bates or Chet Holmgren,
Monty Bates,
would you take?
Number one.
Chet Holmgren looked really good.
Both of them, Rob.
That dude was balling the other night. I was so impressed, man. Like Holmgren. I mean, Bates is a really good player too, but like
they're both terrific.
You could tell he was out for blood. He wanted to prove a point, and that's impressive to see a high school kid with that mentality.
Rob, Chet Holmgren, 7 feet, $190.
His dunk at the end of the game where he like crossed over and like went off one foot and just hung on the rim, like that was.
Wait till he puts on 30 pounds. Wait till he puts on 30. Because everybody looks at him now and they're like laughing at me when I tweeted. I said I would take either of those guys.
He looks like Durant in high school. Yeah. That's what Kevin Durant looked like.
Totally.
People forget, like Durant now is really functionally strong, but Kevin Durant was like, nothing. People talked about how he couldn't bench 185, but functionally he was very weak. Like that, he looks a lot like Chet Holmgren's body.
He does. And Chet's just funny because he's so goofy looking. And I did an interview.
Super lanky, talking shit. Like
he's great. He makes fun of himself. Like he had a good thing. I did something with him and the kid Paulo Banchero, who's going to Duke, together maybe a couple months ago during the quarantine. And Chet was just, man, fun. That was the first time I talked to him. He was just, you could tell, like a lot of 7-footers don't want to play hoop. And you can tell who they are because they kind of cower, right? They don't want to talk. Chet Holmgren is like totally confident in who he is. And you can see it on the court. Like he knows he's not that strong, but he's not shying away from any contact.
Well, also just his ability to protect the rim. I mean, those guards were flying in there, and they had no answer for his length, size, all the above.
I would take both Chet Holmgren and Emoni Bates today over anybody in this draft, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. That's how confident I would be. I think both are going to be NBA All-Stars.
Yeah.
And again, we never know. You never know, injuries, stuff like that. But all right, what do we got? Best NBA career coming out of this group. Who's going to have the best NBA career?
I think James Wiseman is. I think he got lost in the fact that like people have forgotten about him. You play 3 games, you don't see him for a year. Man, he's 7'1". He doesn't shoot it horribly. Nope. Like he can shoot a 15-footer. Maybe he can extend his range. He runs as well as anybody at his size that we've ever seen. Like it's a David Robinson like rim run. I really believe that he can be effective. He's not going to be Shaq. He's not going to be like throw it to him on the block and give us, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon like performance posting up. That's not who he is. But for today's NBA big, I really believe that he fits perfectly. And if you put him with the Warriors and that culture and you get Draymond Green in his ear, like, dude, I really think he could be a stud for them. I think people have just because he kind of disappeared.
Like
I think he'd be better than DeAndre Ayton.
Me too.
I think he has gifts that DeAndre Ayton. Like, well, Ayton is huge. Like Ayton's not running like that. He's a solid athlete, but like this dude is an elite athlete at his size.
Yes, he is. All right, so back in your boy Anthony Bennett's draft class, 2013, CJ McCollum went 10th, but the best player was clearly Giannis out of that draft. He went 15th, and Rudy Gobert went 27th. Mm-hmm. So here's what I'm getting at. In a weak class, American class, I'm going to put my money on an international guy to be the best player to come out of this draft. Mm-hmm. I am. So I'm going with Denny Avdia in this. I feel like the one drawback watching him is his perimeter shot.
It doesn't look bad. I've seen him work out here a few times. Yeah. It looks pretty good. Yep. Like he was down here in Atlanta training, and really good kid. It looks like it should go in. You can't say that for some guys, so that's encouraging. Like when guys can't shoot and they're young, but it looks okay. You're like, this has. You start refining this. You get in the gym. This is a chance.
I just feel like he's super skilled. He needs to probably get a little bit stronger from the looks of it, certainly. But again, he's young. And I feel like with today's NBA, he fits. He fits today's NBA. And the one area where, like you said, his shot's not broke, but the one area where you can improve the most in the NBA with work.
Most workable thing you got. You can't improve, you can improve your vertical only so much.
Right. Even your handle, right? Like either you can dribble or you can't. I feel like it's hard to improve your handle in the NBA, but you can improve your shot. And I just think, again, I think he's a guy that's going to be really solid. I think the same thing for Obi Toppin. I think he's going to have a good, solid NBA career. But I don't know who's going to be the best. I do think the best player may come out of the number 15 pick, like it did with Giannis. I could see that 100% in this year's draft. It's going to be interesting to watch. I don't think there's going to be as much movement as people will speculate in the hours leading up to it.
I'll ask you this. What about Boston? If anybody's going to move up, you'd think because they have so many picks that it's going to be Danny Ainge, right?
Yeah, if I'm Danny Ainge, listen, I'm looking to absolutely solidify and get a veteran at least out of these 3 picks. If I could trade all 3, you have 14 and you get 2 late first rounders. If I can wheel all 3 of them and get somebody that can help me now, a scoring guard off the bench.
Right.
To me, that's a huge difference. And then we'll see. Do they move Gordon Hayward? Do they make a move and maybe deal Kemba because he was terrible in the playoffs last year? I don't know.
He was hurt though, right?
What's that?
He had to be. He looked hurt.
Yeah, he was hurt. He looked small. Is what he looked. He looked small in the.
He's always been small. I don't know what you've been watching. He's always been small. That's never been his strength.
I would trade Gordon Hayward if I could today. If I could get 90% value for Gordon Hayward, and I don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to opt in, opt out to his final year, and it's like $35 million. I mean, to me, the only way you opt out is knowing, like Al Horford did, that you're going to get a big time 3-4 year deal.
I don't think anybody can do that with the uncertainty of the salary cap. At least not in their right mind.
Yeah, it'd be hard.
You'd have to really hate the place you're at to opt out when you've got $35 million coming. I wonder with Gordon, and I don't know this because I have never talked to him about it or asked him about it, but I wonder, like, you went to Boston to be the man, and you break your ankle, and it's nobody's fault. Like, it happens. And he hasn't been able to kind of find that comfort zone he had in Utah. I wonder if he's happy. I don't know. I mean, not that he's a selfish guy at all, not that he's not a team player and he plays his role, but like, you didn't go there expecting to be the 4th option. You didn't think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were going to kind of blow up and you're going to get Kemba Walker. Like, you went there to lead the Celtics with Brad Stevens and be the man.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's selfish at all. I think it's what a competitor should think, but I wonder if he's
not
happy
yourself, Rob. You're also not yourself. You're not what you were prior to the injury. So
I think that I dealt with it in college. Like, when you're playing, you're like, man, I used to be good, and now I'm not. Like, not that he's not good. He's just not. He's not doing what he was doing in Utah. When you're like, dude, he's a top 10 player in the league.
Yep.
He's
their 4th best player. He's clearly their 4th best player.
Yeah, he's a role player for them. Right. It sucks. It's hard to go through because mentally you're like, man, I'm putting the same work in. Maybe I don't move the same. Right. In the back of my mind, I've got a little bit of fear that if I really drive hard, my knee or my leg might go. Like, that's a shitty way to play. That sucks.
Just don't do that when you're testing for your vertical later today. Don't be thinking. All right, just let it go.
Big time breakfast, and I'm gonna
let it go.
These hips through, and I'm gonna put a 26 on the board.
My over-under on you, I think you can get 23. I say 23 today.
I'm going to make them allow me to try with the running start too.
Can we make sure we get video of this today, please?
Yeah, I'll film it.
We need video.
I'm not afraid of the footage.
I'm not afraid of the moment, the footage, whatever it is.
I'm not afraid of that. I will rise up. I'm going to have them bumping 2000s hip-hop in there to get my mindset right, and we're going to go. It's going to be great.
All right, well, next week, you heard it here. We will see the footage of Robbie Hummel trying to increase his vertical from 21 up to 26. We will also, I'm sure, talk more about college basketball. We'll know a lot more. I mean, a week from now, we're going to be talking about days away, Rob, from the start of the college basketball season. I do think it'll start, but I think it could be ugly from there. So
I hope I have my schedule by then. It'll be good if I have my That's what I hope I have my schedule by then on what games I'm doing. That'd be great.
Hey, I just hope you get put, you won't be in a pod, but a pod with Teddy Valentine would be great. If you just
I would love that.
Teddy around all year.
I could just hear all the stories.
I mean, couldn't you listen to him all day long?
I could.
All
I
day.
could have talked to him for another 2 hours.
Me
and
too.
He could have too, I think.
I think we'll bring him back. I think we're going to bring him back later this year because he can talk about what's going on with the officials throughout the season. So we'll do that. All right. Well, listen, be safe. Good luck. And we'll talk next week.
Sounds good. See ya.